food nutrition security programs as one option. As another option, there is a 2% excise duty being given now, or an increase on mobile money transfers.
Yes,
and this, this off-budget fund is being given entirely to the Big Four pillar, universal healthcare.
Yes.
So arguably, and you can agree or disagree, but we're looking at investing or putting money towards the cure rather than the prevention. So why isn't a portion of these excise duties been given to food nutrition security programs, for example? And yeah, so I would probably, there are opportunities to increase the 3.54% at least marginally.
All right.
Yeah.
Considering they are under the Big Four agenda, but we're going to look into that in just a bit.
Okay.
Now, 75% of farmers practice small-scale farming, and they seem to lack a boost from the government, as the government it seems to only concentrate on big-scale farmers due to export. Now, because that is the large number that they focus on. How can this be fixed from where you sit?
I think you
need... 75% is a big number.
It's hugely significant, and it's also the fact that 75% of the food that we eat in Kenya is produced by smallholder farmers, the majority of whom are women. So we need to start looking at policies and programs and corresponding budget allocation that support smallholder production and specifically food nutrition security, like we've said. So we're looking at local production, local supply. We're looking at family farming movements and subsistence farming, really. Firstly, subsistence farming, if we're talking about crawling before we walk, it's firstly subsistence farming, being able to feed ourselves and our immediate families before we can look at larger scale or bigger agriculture, which would serve a national economic growth sort of agenda. And I think that's really where the orientation or the approach to agriculture needs to start. It's something that's looking more at what's going to have a big impact or be a big win for food nutrition security.
And here we have quite a number of stakeholders. We're looking at consumers, we're looking at the farmers themselves, we're looking at the government, we're looking at a private sector. What roles would you say they would have to play to help the small-scale farmers, especially the government?
I think, we've spoken a lot about the government, and I think some of the I think the government's role is to create an enabling environment in order for people to be able to, or farmers to be able to produce food, okay? And I think by then we're looking at, and I would say, incentives are things like, let's actually invest in the much needed infrastructure to make a market access easier. Let's show our political will by, for example, putting budget behind extension services, which is entirely excluded from the budget, the budget programs. Let's look at a subsidy model instead of looking at chemical fertilizers. Why don't we look at an organic input subsidy model or a model where, farmers are actually given cash to cut out the middleman and the option to choose their own inputs, which would allow them to have that choice and that agency. So it's not like you are then saying, listen, I'm giving you this fertilizer, irrespective of whether it's compatible with your soil or not, going to affect your yields the year after. You have the choice to be able to look at that. I think when we look at other stakeholders,
for example,
banks,
the banks,
which is most prominent, I think you'd really looking at increasing credit access, which would be the first one in a way that matches the needs of smallholder farmers. You're looking at creative insurance products that shield or protect farmers from extreme weather conditions and financial ruin.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Banks. What about the consumers?
The consumers for me, consumers in Kenya need to be more conscious of the food that they are buying and how it's being produced. And that demand needs to be a demand for food that is grown potentially in a certain way, or has followed a certain value chain, and it's actually ended up, people know that this is supporting smallholder farmers. I think that's where the demand side needs to come on. We need to demand a certain kind of product that's grown in a certain way, so we know that it is healthy for us. And very nutritional. So I think that's where the consumers need to come in.
All right.
Yeah.
And with that said, this is a question that I was going to ask you way later on,
Yeah.
just to hear. It was actually
I
my
knew you
last
jumped to it.
question.
I was
Yes.
queuing right now, like, okay.
This was actually my last question to you.
Yeah.
But of course, you've heard about the contraband sugar. You've heard about the maize scandal. These are cases that are still in court. And now here we are talking about food security. What are your sentiments on that, especially now that, just to give our viewers a proper clarification on what exactly I'm asking you, when it comes to contraband sugar, we have, it has been confirmed by the Ministry of Health that the sugar is actually not fit for human consumption. When it comes to maize, we've had maize, the NCPB, where the farmers, local farmers are complaining that their product is actually going to waste, as a product from elsewhere is what consumers in Kenya, the common mwananchi, is consuming and supplying and purchasing. What is your take on that from where you sit?
Well, my take is that it's the authorities that are supposed to oversee this are not doing a good enough job. Firstly, I think also the fact that there seems to be no repercussion when this happens, when we hear these stories, means that it creates an environment where it's sort of okay, like it's fine, this is going to happen. We've had a maize scandal years back already. You know, we're going to see it again probably in the future. So, you know, there needs to be some sort of repercussion when the responsible authorities are not doing their jobs. And you know, these issues come up. I also think, just to throw it right back at you, like the perception of this is largely shaped, or my take on it is very much influenced and shaped by the media. And the media are actively reporting on these issues, and you know, I would trust that. And they're saying that, you know, this is what has been found in terms of contraband sugar and in terms of NCPB scandals.